The first time I saw the Red Pyramid at Giza, I was awestruck by its smooth, blemish-free slopes. It is truly one of the most impressive pyramids in all of Egypt. However, that's not what brought me to make this video. While the Great Pyramid of Khufu, the Sphinx, and other pyramids around Cairo get the majority of tourist attention, there are three pyramids in the Dahshur necropolis south of Cairo that often go unnoticed. These are the Red Pyramid, the Bent Pyramid, and the Black Pyramid. Today we will be focusing on the first two, as these were built by the same pharaoh. Our story begins with Sneferu, the second king of the Fourth Dynasty. The Fourth Dynasty is considered to be the golden age of the Old Kingdom of Egypt. The dynasty boasted some of the wealthiest and most powerful pharaohs who left behind them magnificent monuments that to this day still draw in millions of visitors from around the world. Some of the most famous pyramids were built during the reign of the Fourth Dynasty, including the Great Pyramid of Khufu, the Second Pyramid of Khafra, and the Third Pyramid of Menkaure. However, Sneferu, the second king of the Fourth Dynasty, also built pyramids that were just as impressive. Sneferu came to power in 2613 BC and reigned over Egypt for 45 years. He ruled during a peaceful and prosperous time in Egyptian history, which allowed him to focus his attention on building grandiose projects across Egypt. In fact, he is known to have undertaken more large building projects than any other pharaoh before or after him. During his reign, he built several palaces, temples, and pyramids. One of his most well-known building projects was his choice of locations for his mortuary complex. While most pharaohs chose to build their pyramids on the Giza Plateau near Cairo, Sneferu opted to construct his pyramids south of Cairo in the necropolis of Dahshur. The reason behind this decision remains unknown. Sneferu ended up building three pyramids at Dahshur: the Bent Pyramid, the Red Pyramid, and the Black Pyramid. The first two pyramids were constructed by Imhotep, the vizier of Sneferu, while the last pyramid was built later by another architect. But we will get to that later. The Bent Pyramid, also known as the North Pyramid of Dahshur, is the second largest pyramid in Egypt, standing at 105 meters tall. At the time of its construction, it was the tallest man-made structure in the world. The Bent Pyramid is unique from the other pyramids in Egypt because it has a steep incline. The angle of inclination of the steeper side is 54 degrees, making it the steepest inclined face of any pyramid. This steepness was intentional and served a purpose. Because of the angle, any stones rolling down the side would roll back up, reducing erosion. The angle of inclination of each face of the bent pyramid can differ widely, hence its name. According to geologists, the change in slope was due to the type of limestone being used in its construction. The upper portion of the bent pyramid was originally covered with white Tura limestone, which is softer than the limestone used on the lower portion. Over time, these limestone blocks were eroded away, causing the appearance of the bare, rougher limestone blocks underneath. However, the majority of these limestone blocks were removed during the 19th century when the area was quarried for building materials. The Bent Pyramid has 5 chambers spread out over 4 levels inside the pyramid. The entrance to the pyramid is on the north side and leads down into a shaft, going straight into the center of the pyramid. There is another entrance on the east side, which leads into a vertical passage. Both of these shafts lead into a room, but they do not go all the way down. Each shaft has an opening above it, allowing cool air to flow into the room. Warm air would then rise through a shaft at the top of the room and exit through openings in the ceiling. This would create a constant flow of air within the room, keeping it cool even in the hottest of temperatures. This concept of airflow is seen in many ancient Egyptian structures, such as the Queen's Chamber in the Great Pyramid of Khufu and the mortuary temple of the New Kingdom pharaoh Hatshepsut. Now let's talk about Sneferu's second pyramid at Dahshur, the beautiful Red Pyramid. The Red Pyramid stands at 104 meters tall and is only a few feet shorter than the Bent Pyramid. It is the second largest pyramid in Egypt and the world's oldest complete pyramid with perfectly smooth faces. The Red Pyramid is made entirely of limestone. Its outer casing was made of white Tura limestone, while the inner portions were constructed with high-quality white and grey limestone. Unfortunately, like the Bent Pyramid, much of this limestone has been eroded away and taken from the pyramid. There is a popular misconception that the Red Pyramid gets its color from a reflective oxide layer on the surface of the limestone, giving it the reddish hue. However, this is not true. The limestone of the Red Pyramid is actually more coarsely crushed than the limestone used in the Bent Pyramid. The grain size of the limestone determines the color of the pyramid. Smaller grain size equals whiter pyramid, while larger grain size results in darker pyramids. It is this difference in grain size rather than a red oxide layer that causes the Red Pyramid to be colored red. It is thought that the builders of the Red Pyramid learned from the mistakes made on the Bent Pyramid, and thus the Red Pyramid is perfectly smooth. The Red Pyramid also has 5 chambers, but unlike the Bent Pyramid, all of its chambers are located on one level. The main chamber is in the center of the pyramid and consists of 2 burial rooms and 2 antechambers. The 2 burial rooms had granite sarcophagi in them, but neither of them contained the remains of Sneferu. The Red Pyramid was originally thought to be the final resting place of Sneferu, but his mummy was instead found in the nearby Maidum Pyramid. In addition to the main chamber, there are 2 other smaller chambers branching off from the central chamber. It is uncertain how these chambers were used, but they likely served some sort of religious function. One interesting aspect of the Red Pyramid is that it is slightly tilted to the north. In fact, it is the only major pyramid in Egypt that does not face true north. The tilt is so slight that it cannot be noticed unless you're standing directly in front of the pyramid. However, the reason behind the tilt remains unknown. It is hypothesized that the construction of the Red Pyramid took roughly 27 years to complete, starting in 2600 BC. That means that Sneferu would have been around 80 years old at the time of its completion. It is quite remarkable that a pharaoh so old would have commissioned the construction of such a massive and complex pyramid. What happened to Sneferu's body after his death is a bit confusing. Originally, his mummy was thought to have been placed in the Red Pyramid based on the discovery of several sarcophagi within the pyramid. However, it was later discovered that none of these sarcophagi contained his remains. The mystery was finally solved when his mummy was found in the nearby Maidum Pyramid. To add to the confusion, a bust of Sneferu found in the Red Pyramid does not look like the traditional depictions of Sneferu. It looks very much like the features of his son, the Pharaoh Khufu, who built the Great Pyramid of Giza. This has led some Egyptologists to believe that the bust may have actually been intended for Khufu, but was placed in Sneferu's pyramid by mistake. After the death of Sneferu, his son, Khufu, succeeded him to the throne. You may remember Khufu from my previous videos on the Great Sphinx and the Great Pyramid of Giza. Khufu continued the building project started by his father and is responsible for the construction of the Great Pyramid of Giza, the largest pyramid in Egypt. After Khufu, Sneferu's grandson, Khafre, took the throne. Khafre is responsible for the second pyramid at Giza, the Khafre Pyramid. And now, let's turn our attention to the third pyramid at Dashur, the Black Pyramid. Unlike the previous 2 pyramids, the Black Pyramid was built during the reign of Amenemhat III, the first king of the 12th dynasty. As I mentioned earlier, the first 2 pyramids were built by Imhotep during the reign of Sneferu. When Amenemhat III came to power, Imhotep was serving as the vizier under Sneferu, and after Sneferu's death, Imhotep continued to serve as vizier under Khufu and Khafre. So while Imhotep built the first 2 pyramids of Dashur for Sneferu, he then went on to build the Black Pyramid for Amenemhat III. The Black Pyramid is quite different from the other two pyramids at Dashur. It is much smaller, standing at only 55 meters tall. It is also the only pyramid at Dashur with rough, unpolished masonry. The Black Pyramid is made entirely of limestone, but its surfaces were never covered with white Tura limestone like the Bent and Red Pyramids. Therefore, it has retained its original dark grey color. The interior of the Black Pyramid is just as confusing as the exterior. Most of the pyramid is filled with random passages with no real order. In fact, archaeologists have found over 100 undocumented shafts and chambers within the pyramid. These random passages have led some to believe that the pyramid was used as a labyrinth to confuse thieves trying to steal the pharaoh's treasures. As you can see, the pyramids at Dashur are quite fascinating. While the Bent and Red Pyramids are certainly the stars of the show, I hope I was able to convince you that the Black Pyramid is worth visiting as well. Thank you all so much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed. Please remember to share if you learned something new, and I'll see you next time.